I don't understand why you're so against trams. I don't know why this channel is so dismissive of trams. Why are North American urbanists so weirdly negative about trams? I wouldn't actually say that I hate trams. I don't visit cities with trams and think, this sucks. I'm not even against my city building trams. But I'm not as enthusiastic as some of you out there. Call that negative, call that dismissive. Here's why. So what I'm talking about are trams or streetcars. Light rail systems that mostly run in city streets, even if they dip underground, go elevated, or veer off-street in a few places. Famous tram cities include Melbourne and Prague. Toronto has trams. Amsterdam too. Many modern North American LRT systems, like the Waterloo Ion, also count as trams. LRTs that don't run much in traffic, or have especially wide spacings between stops, are in a different category. Ottawa and Seattle work more like light metros, even if they use tram-like vehicles. The first reason I'm not as enthusiastic about trams is that here in Canada, trams are being proposed and built in contexts where they don't really make sense. Case in point, the Rem de l'Est saga. Montreal turned down a regional metro in the east end of the city, and now plans to build a tram. The point of the project was to use speed to shrink distances in the east end, which has some of the absolute worst commute times in the region. A tram does a worse job at that. Running in the street is inherently slower, and it'll require a whole extra transfer to get downtown or to the airport. With Transit City, Toronto planned to largely replace subway construction with street-running light rail, aka trams. They were promoted as surface rapid transit, or in other words, almost subway service for much less money. Subway versus tram was a major debate in Toronto 10 or 20 years ago. Some, but not all, of the light rail projects went forward. Even in Vancouver, there's long been a contingent of people who wish the SkyTrain had been built more like a tram.
Putting the streetcar back into our city completes the city. Subway does not.
It's better for the urban environment. It's a superior form of transit.
People advocate trams replacing subways for aesthetic reasons, for cost reasons, and sometimes, counterintuitively, for environmental reasons. Subways use too much concrete and carbon in construction, they'll say. This isn't just a Canadian phenomenon either. See Alon Levy on Misguided Anti-Subway, U-Bahn, Environmentalism in Berlin. So a lot of the negativity that you hear about trams from me or other people isn't necessarily about trams themselves, but rather the context in which they're proposed here. I don't think trams are a good replacement for subways or metros, in a context where we expect people to travel medium to long distances. Where are trams appropriate? Smaller cities, first of all, where the distances aren't as long, and we also don't need the higher capacity of a subway or a metro. Or for routes in bigger cities, that are shorter or have more local trips. I think of trams more like an upgrade for buses, rather than a stand-in for metros. Trams have a higher capacity, and are a smoother and more comfortable ride than a bus. Tram routes are more legible. You can easily look at a map or a street and understand, there's a tram here and it goes over there. Trams don't automatically mean nicer streets, but building one can be an opportunity to redesign and beautify the public realm. Trams also have some downsides. They can't go around obstacles. In some cases, you might have to do an extra transfer, bus to tram, instead of just taking a bus all the way through. But overall, trams are pretty nice. If I was going to propose a tram for my city, it would be a street like Park Avenue. It's a well-used bus route that could benefit from extra capacity. It's a medium distance to downtown, with lots of people making shorter trips. It's a dangerous street that could benefit from a redesign. A tram here could connect 3 metro lines, without itself following the metro too closely. Another good candidate is Côte-des-Neiges Road, another well-used bus route, people taking short to medium distance trips, and connecting 3 metro lines without following too close. These trams were actually proposed in my city's 2050 Urbanism and Mobility Plan, among many other routes. And if these were the ones up for debate today rather than the tram de l'Est, I'd probably sound more pro-tram. Another problem though, I'm not totally confident we're capable of building good trams. Converting a bus to a tram is an automatic upgrade for some things like comfort and capacity. But it doesn't automatically give you better speed or frequency, 2 of the most important parts of the transit experience. Toronto has famously slow trams. I used to live near the Spadina streetcar, which averages an embarrassing 10 kilometers an hour, and that is despite having its own lanes. You don't expect trams to be as fast as a subway or metro, which average 30 to 40 kilometers an hour, but they shouldn't crawl along this slow and barely improve on walking. Why are Toronto's trams so slow? Lots of things, like having a lot of stops, weak signal priority, and intentionally going slow through intersections. Urban trams in Melbourne, Zurich, and Amsterdam average more like 15 kilometers an hour. I found some 18 kilometer an hour routes in Berlin. By the way, I'm calculating these speeds from Google Maps for noon on a Wednesday. Official average speeds you find online might be a little different. And this is the average speed across the line, including time spent stopping. In the right conditions, trams can go even faster. The Waterloo Ion averages 22 kilometers an hour, due to stronger signal priority, and using some off-street corridors for sections. Surely, Toronto has learned its lesson? Nope. The new Finch West tramway crawls along at 12 kilometers an hour, even though it was initially proposed at 22 kilometers an hour, just like Waterloo. So for those trams that I'd be happy to see here in my city, I'd be way more enthusiastic if I knew that there'd be a speed improvement over the bus, not just comfort or streetscape. 15 would be nice, 18 would be great. But remember, many methods to speed up trams can also be applied to buses. Maybe your city would use a new tram project as an opportunity to implement things like strong signal priority. Or maybe the same values and politics that kept your buses slow will also keep your trams slow. My city built a new bus rapid transit corridor recently. Dedicated lanes and stations, nice. But they left a lot of speed improvements on the table, from signal changes to intersection design. Would they do better for a tram? Maybe. I don't know. But I do know that metros or subways avoid these questions. You know what you're gonna get. One country that's built a lot of trams in the past few decades is France. But France has one big advantage. They're one of the countries that builds transit much more cheaply than we do in Canada, or the US, UK, and so on. The Quebec City Tramway is set to cost $8 billion. In France, a similar project might cost $2.5 billion, or less. For more context on why, and which projects in Canada have been better than average, take a look at this video on the Waterloo Ion LRT. The important point is this. When you can build transit cheaply, it's a lot easier to take on the nice-to-have projects, like upgrading a bus to a tram for a smoother ride or nicer urban environment. When transit is expensive to build, you have to focus on the most critical projects, which probably does include the Quebec City tram. But the supporting routes in Montreal, while I would like to see them, feel more like a nice-to-have. So one part of why I and others come across as negative on trams is where we live. These trams should not be so slow. These projects probably shouldn't be trams at all. But the specific context of where we live is not the whole story here. This whole topic came up because in a recent video I said that Dutch trams were fine, but not as impressive as the cycling. When we visited the Netherlands, I was way more impressed by the biking than the trams. They were fine, but this was awesome. I stand by that. When we were in Amsterdam, we stayed in the west of the city, near tram lines 7 and 13. We took them a few times, and they were fine, like I said. But they still weren't really competitive with cycling for most of our trips around the city, and we mainly only took the trams when we didn't have access to a bike. Going to the Rijksmuseum. 23 minutes by bike versus 32 by tram, plus time spent waiting for the tram, plus €5 round-trip fare. Vondelpark. 19 minutes by bike versus 37 by tram, plus waiting, plus transit fare. I can admit I'm biased. I enjoy cycling, but this is pretty objective. If we're judging by time and cost, urban street-running trams, even pretty good ones, have a hard time competing. Amsterdam trams being faster than Toronto trams doesn't mean they're faster than cycling. Not all trips can be done by bike, and not everyone wants to bike. Obviously, we still need local transit. But if you're asking me what transit really wowed me in the Netherlands, it just wasn't the trams. It was the intercity trains. There actually are trams out there that can go much faster. Express Tram T12 in Paris is 29 kilometers an hour, comparable actually to a subway or a metro. It connects some major transit hubs along the southern suburbs of Paris. This would actually be a more compelling service for me, as someone who's happy to bike for more local trips. But it achieves this by looking very little like a traditional street-running tram. It follows an old railway corridor, then along a highway. The stops are pretty far apart. What makes it a tram is mainly the vehicles, and its role in the Paris transit network. It feeds people into the even faster RER regional rail system. If you like trams for street beautification, you're not really getting that here, except for a bit at the southern end. At the beginning of the video, I defined trams as mostly running in the street, because that's usually what people are thinking of. But a tram is really a type of vehicle that can be used in lots of different ways, and it's important to separate those out when talking about them, because they don't all have the same strengths and weaknesses. Same thing with Line 25, the Amstel tram in Amsterdam. It's twice as fast as some of the older lines and much more competitive with cycling. But if you associate trams with picturesque urban streets, this isn't that. It starts along a large suburban arterial by Dutch standards, with stops and trenches surrounded by gas stations. Then it has major off-street sections, including an embankment along a canal. It's maybe a testament to the flexibility of the technology, but it also means we can be talking about very different things when we talk about trams. You're not going to reach the speeds of T12 or the Amstel tram running down dense city streets. Do trams suck? Nope. Trams can be totally nice. But I don't think that street-running trams should replace subways or metros as the spine of the transit network in bigger cities. They support rapid transit, they don't replace it. Even cities like Berlin, Paris, and Prague carry more people on their metros than their trams. I really wonder, if the Montreal Metro wasn't started in the 60s, whether we'd be trying to do the whole thing today as a tram. And that is crazy to me. Substantially off-street trams can function more like rapid transit, but you need to find or build an off-street corridor for them. You won't get as many street redesigns. You'll probably run further from shops and other destinations. Unlike metros, where you more or less know what you're getting, trams are extremely sensitive to design choices. Thanks for watching through to the end of the video. To anyone in the Montreal political establishment interested in getting this ambitious tram plan built, please care about service and speed. We need to learn the lessons of the honestly so far disappointing Finch West Tramway in Toronto.